welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. Today, after the old day job, I am off to check out the new dark comedy, The Roses. The Roses is directed by Ray Roach and it's starring Olivia Colman, Benedict Cumberbatch, Kate McKinney, and Andy Samberg. It tells the story of two people who are married and in love, and then they're not in love anymore, and then they get into a big fight. Okay, so maybe you guys aren't familiar with this, but this is actually a remake of the 1989 movie The War of the Roses, directed by Danny DeVito and starring Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas. It's a freaking dark comedy classic. This movie has some pretty big shoes to fill in my mind. And just to refresh myself, I went ahead yesterday and sat down and watched the original War of the Roses, and yes, I am gonna be comparing the two because, well, why wouldn't I, right? Well, anyways, guys, you know what? It's enough of me sitting here jibber-jabbering on. It is time for me to get out the door because first off, I gotta get to the old day job, and then I'm off to check out The Roses. Welcome back, just getting home from The Roses. And guys, while I did enjoy this movie, I don't think it necessarily hits the heights of the original film. So let's get this started, shall we? We're going to get things started with negatives, then move into the positive, then end the video on the ever so important high note. Now, the first thing I would have to say about this film was just how the movie is presented. Now, in the first film, we have Danny DeVito who is telling the story to a client of his of The Roses and all of the things that happened. Now, why that's significant is because later in the film, when things get into that more absurd, crazy humor that doesn't seem realistic, we're reminded that this is a story that's being told to somebody. So we have the unreliable narrator to fall back on in that film. This movie's not like that. It just presents itself like a regular movie. Things are happening and we're witnessing on screen just as the people who are on screen. So unfortunately, when the absurdist humor hits, because everything is pretty well grounded in reality, when the more absurd things happen, it just doesn't fit the vibe of the comedy. It just seems like it's there to try to bring in the crowd that likes the more weird kind of comedy. And I think that's why Kate McKinnon was in this movie, because she does bring that level of weird, absurdist comedy. And while I really like her in a lot of things, her character just didn't fit this movie. Like, I never quite figured out exactly why she was in this film, and the only thing I could come up with was they needed yet another another comedy experience character that could bring in a different type of comedy to the movie so they can get, all sorts of different areas kind of covered with everybody. But unfortunately, what that does is it leaves this void with jokes that don't really land because they don't really fit this type of film. But other than that, I would have to say that the comedy does land. If you're a person of a much darker comedy, though, this one doesn't go there. In the original film, as the movie progresses, you really feel the resentment and the absolute hatred and mean-spiritedness with our two main characters. By the end of the film, you 100% believe that these two are trying to kill each other. This movie does not get to those levels whatsoever when it comes to our two characters. Now, they get mean, but they don't necessarily ever feel like they're going to, unleash harm upon each other. It just feels like they're two people who are having a really bad argument. Even when you get into the third act and things go completely haywire between the two of them, it doesn't necessarily feel like we were building to something that would actually get the two of these people to want to literally kill each other. It just felt like like the both of them were being kind of petty about the house situation. Because just like the first film, that is the main focus of this movie, is the two of them feel that they deserve the house by the end of the movie. But in the first movie, both of the main characters have very good solid reasons on why they want this house. In this movie, it seems like we have one character who has an extremely good reason for wanting the house, and then the other person is just being horribly petty. The comedy itself, even though there are moments of mean-spirited dark comedy, it never necessarily feels like it hits the level to where you 100% buy into these two people absolutely hating each other. But you do really find them to a couple that you were rooting for. You really liked them in the beginning of the movie, and the two actors, Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch, do have outstanding chemistry together. And I think that's why it makes it so much harder later in the movie with these two to really feel like they hate each other to the level where they really want to cause physical harm to each other. But other than this, I would have to say that this was a perfectly good remake of a film. Although I'm going to pose a question here real quick. So both the original 1989 movie and this movie are based off of a 1981 novel called The War of the Roses. So is this movie necessarily a remake of the original film, or is it a reinterpretation of the source material that both of these movies come from? Now, I've never read the book whatsoever, so that's why I'm considering this film more of a remake of the original movie, and I think a lot of people are going to feel this way about that too. So there's going to be a lot of comparing going on, and if that's the way it's going to be, this film just does not hit the levels of dark comedy as the original movie. But what I really liked about this movie, and we're moving into the positives, is the fact that it 100% tries to separate itself from the original film. There are plot points and things that have changed. There are different reasons for both of these people doing what they're doing, and the different emotions attached to the characters. So both of these people are very different roses than our first film. But they don't necessarily ever get to a point where you really start fearing for somebody's life with these two. The film itself is perfectly fine. I really enjoyed the cast. I thought everybody in the film did an excellent job. Even though Kate McKinnon's comedy didn't necessarily vibe with this film, she does her thing and she does it well. Everybody in this cast does an excellent job, and I do feel that our two main characters, Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch, were the shining moments. These two, if anybody else was in this film, I honestly don't think that it would have been near this funny. Both of them have a great way of delivering very dry wit and very mean types of lines to each other with absolute deadpan faces and sincerity, and I really enjoyed their performances in this movie. I just wish that this film would have pushed the envelope just a little bit more when it comes to the way that everything plays out. It never really feels like these two are escalating to a point where I ever felt any harm or any kind of fear that something was going to happen to them. I mean, let's just go back to the first movie. Okay, in the third act of the first film, when the two of them are going at each other's throats, it's almost like the film becomes a horror movie. The entire color palette of the film shifts. Our two characters start going into mad, almost primitive ways of thinking, and then they just kind of go at each other. In this movie, it just felt like a really bad argument between two people that more than likely are going to make up in the end. So what do I have to say at the end of the day? Well, honestly, if you've never seen the first movie, I think you're going to probably find a lot here. I did hear a lot of people around me laughing their butts off. The entire audience did have a very solid vibe. Everyone seemed to be having a really good time with this movie, but I don't feel like if you're a fan of the original movie, you're necessarily going to like it as much. But as a remake goes, I really respect this film for trying to be its own thing. And it does succeed, it just doesn't succeed in being nearly as good as the original. So all in all, guys, for me personally, I would have to say I think I would have enjoyed this movie a lot more if I would have watched it on a streaming service, if it was like a Friday night movie that came out on HBO Max, or a direct-to-DVD or a made-for-TV movie or something like that, because it just felt like The War of the Roses light. But if you're someone who has never seen the original film, never read the book whatsoever, I think you're going to go into this movie and have a really good time. So by all means, get out there, check this one out in theaters. I personally just didn't feel like there was enough meat on the bone for this movie for me. Alright guys, well that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.